August 24th marked exactly half a year of the so-called special military operation, which in fact is a full-scale invasion of a sovereign country. Putin voiced at least 4 goals that he wanted to achieve. These are the goals: Denazification of Ukraine, demilitarization of Ukraine, defense of Donbas from Ukraine, protecting Russia from NATO. Interestingly, Russia could not achieve any of its goals in half a year. Let's take a look at how it turned out. First, denazification meant a change of power in Ukraine and a change in political course. Putin wanted to remove the democratically elected government in Kyiv from power. He called them the Nazi regime. On the 5th day of the war, Putin recorded a video appeal to Ukrainian soldiers and urged them not to obey President Zelensky and take power into their own hands.
Берите власть в свои руки.
That did not happen. Zelensky was not afraid of the invasion and did not run away. Instead, he managed to mobilize the country and put up a fierce rebuff against Russian troops. By the way, not a single country in the world except Russia recognized Ukraine as a Nazi power. And Zelensky's authority in the world has grown significantly. The Ukrainian authorities managed to rally around themselves almost all the democratic states in the world. The total GDP of all countries that supported Ukraine is more than 60% of the world GDP. On the contrary, in half a year, Russia has turned into a totalitarian state, isolated from the entire civilized world. Second, demilitarization meant the complete or partial disarmament of the Ukrainian army and the refusal to participate in NATO. This also failed to be achieved. Instead, Russia got the opposite effect. Ukraine has become even more militarized. The West began to supply more deadly and more modern types of weapons. Until now, the supply of weapons and ammunition continues. Also, the NATO countries began to retrain the Ukrainian military according to their standards. In addition, the West has already started talking about the fact that Ukraine will be admitted to NATO after the end of hostilities. And yet Sweden and Finland were accepted into NATO, and Eastern European countries increased their military budgets and are actively arming themselves. The situation has generally become more militarized along Russia's western borders. Third, the defense of Donbas meant access to the administrative borders of the Lugansk and Donetsk unrecognized republics. Here Russia has a partial success. They managed to reach the borders of the Lugansk region. They could not reach the borders of the Donetsk region and most likely will not succeed. The nature of the current hostilities shows that capturing the entire territory of the Donetsk region is already practically impossible, or it will take years. But after all, Ukraine will not stand still during this time. At the moment, the target has not been reached. Fourth, the defense of Russia implied that a danger emanated from Ukraine, which allegedly needed to be preventively stopped. And Russia should have created safer conditions for itself. But as you can see, that didn't happen either. Instead, Ukraine strikes at neighboring Russian regions. Kursk, Belgorod, Voronezh and Rostov regions were subjected for shelling and sabotage. Ukraine also strikes at Crimea, and Russia does not recognize the strikes for political reasons. But the number of missile strikes in Crimea is increasing. It became so obvious that the tourist season in Crimea was disrupted. The Russians massively left the territory of Crimea. In general, the security situation in Russia has become worse. NATO has become closer. The economic interests and opportunities of Russia suffered greatly. Complete failure on the diplomatic front. Russia has become part of rogue states like North Korea, Iran and the countries of Central Africa. Contrary to expectations, China, India and Turkey have chosen to remain neutral without siding with Russia. They interact with Russia only because of the benefits. India and China are buying Russian resources cheaply, while Turkey and Iran have taken advantage of the free markets to sell their goods in Russia. But none of them is ready to supply technology to Russia in circumvention of the sanctions. As a result, we clearly see that in half a year, Russia has not achieved any of its goals and has only worsened the state of affairs for itself on several issues. There are also no signs that the situation for Russia will improve in the next 6 months. Watch also my other videos.